Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to evening devotion. All right, just checking a few things on the computer. Got some comments I need to respond to. Well, we're going to film first. So things have been escalating and de-escalating in the Middle East. The weather is flip-flopping and doing all kinds of crazy things. You name it, it's happening. Well, what did the Lord tell us? Because, and here's an interesting perspective that you may not have heard of or thought about. The more of this that happens, the more desensitized we get. And a perfect example of this was like whenever back in the 70s, my mom, the what was it? The Exorcist. It came out, and so they went and saw it. Of course, me and my brother were too young, and they said there were ambulances there. People were passing out. And my mom and dad, for about a week and a half, slept with the light on because it terrified them so much. You know, there were movies that had come out that just shocked people. In the 80s, The Thing just shocked people. So many of those movies. But now look at the stuff they put on there. You know, when Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees and all that stuff came out. Every time they step up the bar, we get desensitized to it. And so the next round just desensitizes us more. The same thing is happening now. People are not looking at the signs that are happening as anything significant because they're becoming desensitized to it. A lot of that is because of media. A lot of that is because of liars and sensationalists and fear mongers. People are getting so tired of it that they're just... They don't want to hear it. Did you hear about that gal that got up on a plane that had been delayed? They were on the tarmac still. And she stood up and she told everybody that Jesus loved him. God's got a plan for this. This is by design. He may have saved us from a disaster. That's why we're delayed. And I agree with her. That's probably why. So, probably because she was on the plane. She preached the gospel to them. Well, they kicked her off the plane. Then the airlines called her and told her she's banned from ever flying on Alaskan Airlines again or coming to that airport. They didn't feel safe with her on the plane. They would have freaked out if that plane would have went down after they kicked her off. See, the Lord does that stuff. He'll put one believer in a situation like that and show people and preach the gospel. And then they'll remove them from the situation. Well, their peace goes with them. And he will deal with it. Now, I don't think anything happened on that flight. However, that stuff has happened before. So, people are becoming desensitized to everything. You know, they don't want to hear it. They don't care. And I think that's exactly where the world is supposed to be for when the Lord returns. People aren't going to be looking. What did he tell us? What was his message to us? I'm coming at an hour you do not expect. You're not going to be paying attention when I come. We all harp on this looking and looking and looking, and we are. It won't overtake us because we're looking. But we're coming at an hour we do not expect. Something's going to be happening that's going to distract everybody. Angus is itching to go outside and see what's going on, but it's hot. I'm trying to keep the door closed, keep the air in. He'll wait a little bit. There's nothing outside that requires his immediate attention. People are becoming desensitized, and they don't care anymore. They're not watching anymore. That's by design. The world isn't paying attention very much to Iran anymore. The world isn't, like, all the videos that are coming out about that stuff are starting to lose views. People just aren't paying. The volcanoes people aren't paying attention to. The earthquakes are not paying attention. The Christian persecution they're not paying attention to. The Jewish persecution they're not paying attention to. It's always been that way. No, it hasn't. And when somebody steps up and says, well, hold on, no, it hasn't. Hasn't always been that way. This has just been the last couple of years this has happened. See, they forgot just a few years ago how everything changed. They forgot a couple of years ago, October 7th. They forgot what happened after that. People forget that stuff. We've almost all but forgotten 9/11. So this is all by design. People need to be numb to it and not paying attention. Now, for some, it's going to be a seared conscience. For others, it's just exhaustion. Tired of and the frustration of watching. Tired of watching. Not tired in a bad way, as in they don't want to watch anymore, but tired as in worn out. We know these are the right signs. We know this is happening. We know where this is going to lead. We're just getting exhausted from it. I think that's by design. What did it say about the Antichrist? It's going to wear out the saints in the tribulation. They're going to be exhausted. That's by design. I had to get a shot of nasal spray. Whew. Nose was stopping up. So everything that we're seeing, everything that's unfolding, people are getting to the point where they're going to stop paying attention. I believe I said something about this a year or two ago. I think I talked about some stuff happening at the beginning of this year. At the end of last year and the beginning of this year, stuff that might happen, and we're seeing some of it. It's all by design. And it's not no magical thing. I'm just reading the word and looking at what's going on. And it's like, okay, well, this is obvious. But the closer we get, I think people are going to start to pull away and say, I'm not looking anymore. I'm not interested. All you guys have been saying this, we're tired of you. This may come from actual believers. I think that's on purpose. Because when we're not paying attention, all of a sudden, everything changes. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'll tell you what, there's so much happening now. Every single hour of every day, the news completely changes. Every single hour. Last year, is every 2 to 4 hours. This year, it's every single hour. That's amazing. You can go and you can check all the news sources, come back in 60 minutes, and everything's completely different. It's amazing. Let's read out of Ruth 2:17. And I say all that because this is a sign of the times. We're in these final moments, these end days. I finally got to listen to the rest of Ken Johnson's video that he did. I'll link it in a pinned comment so you guys can watch it, about the rapture in Daniel 8 and the stuff he talked about in there. And he makes it clear. A lot of people think that all this stuff in Daniel 8 is all Antiochus Epiphanes and this other guy. I can't think of his name at the moment. He said, well, that's impossible because these things here in this part of Daniel are all future because that's Antichrist. And he shows how he come to that conclusion. I think that's astounding. I think that's amazing. I came to that conclusion just reading the book like it was. Read it, look at it. Oh, hold on a second. That's not past. That's future. Because a bunch of the things that are supposed to happen in that chapter have not happened. Nobody's done them. So, interesting. And so he confirms that there's still some that needs to be fulfilled. I believe we're seeing the refresher of the first events, letting us know the last events are about to be unfold. And if that's the case, and again, I'll link that video and you take a watch and listen to it and see what you think. If that's the case, the ramifications of that are huge. That means we're right on the cusp of everything changing and everything going completely the other direction. It's a good thing for us because the Lord's coming. Ruth 2:17, so she gleaned in the field until even. The whole verse says, so she gleaned in the field until evening and beat out what she'd gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. So we read, what was it, yesterday? Ephesians, yesterday in morning devotion, Ruth 2:2. Well, now we're going to be reading on the lower end of Ruth, so let's go up 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. We'll start in verse 11 because that's where we ended yesterday, I believe. And Boaz answered and said to her, "It has been fully reported to me all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, and how you have left your father and your mother and the land of your birth, and have come to the people whom you did not know before. The Lord repay your work, and a full reward be given you by the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge." Then she said, "Let me find favor in your sight, my lord, for you have comforted me and have spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not like one of your maidservants." Now Boaz said to her at mealtime, "Come here and eat of the bread, and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar." So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed parched grain to her, and she ate and was satisfied and kept some back. That's your picture of the Last Supper. Dip your hand in the bowl. That's a picture of the Last Supper. A lot of guys since I've been doing this ministry have done videos that have talked about it. I never noticed that before. That's right there. The Last Supper is pictured in here. And when she rose up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, "Let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. Also let grain from the bundles fall purposely for her. Leave it that she may glean, and do not rebuke her." This is a picture of us reading the Bible and learning about the Lord, getting the little bits of blessing from him. So she gleaned in the field until evening, and beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. Then she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. So she brought out and gave to her what she had kept back after she had been satisfied. And her mother-in-law said to her, "Where have you gleaned today? And where did you work? Blessed be the one who took notice of you." So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and said, "The man's name with whom I work today is Boaz." Then Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "Blessed be he of the Lord, who has not forsaken his kindness to the living and the dead." And Naomi said to her, "This man is a relation of ours, one of our close relatives." So for Naomi, it would have been by marriage. Yeah, it would have been by marriage. No. Yeah. No, maybe she was an actual relative. Yeah, must have been an actual relative. Keeping it in the bloodline. Ruth is in the bloodline of Jesus. Ruth the Moabitess said, "He also said to me, 'You shall stay close by my young men until they have finished all my harvest.' And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, 'It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, and that people do not meet you in any other field.' So she stayed close by the young women of Boaz to glean until the end of the barley harvest and wheat harvest, and she dwelt with her mother-in-law." How interesting to see this. So the mother-in-law technically could be a picture of Israel. Ruth, a picture of the Gentile church with some Jewish connections, because we have Jewish believers in the church. The young women and the young men, that's angels. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing here, what it reminds me of, what pops into my head. Boaz, a picture of Jesus. Now Boaz, later in the further chapters, Boaz goes and talks to another relative who's an elder over him. I already have an inheritance. It literally is a picture of the Father. "Stay close to me until my barley and wheat harvest are done." Well, the barley harvest, the first fruits of that, was 2,000 years ago when those people rose from the grave. The wheat harvest is coming. I don't even know if the barley harvest is finished. We may be the barley harvest, the rest of it, the full body of it. Or maybe we may be the first fruits of the wheat harvest. I don't know. I don't know all that stuff. I'm not smart enough for that. I'm just telling you what is popping into my head. This is all reminding me of the other things I've read. It just smacks of Revelation and of Thessalonians and so many of the books in the New Testament that tell us about all these things. It really is incredible. Make sure I'm still recording here. How much this book has in it. "Let me learn from Ruth the gleaner. As she went out to gather the ears of corn, so must I go forth into the fields of prayer, meditation, and ordinances, and hearing the word." That's one part of it, hearing. Speaking is the other part. "And hearing the word to gather spiritual food." That lady on that plane, that's what she was doing to them people. They did not know she was not only blessing them, but she was feeding them spiritual food. and they pushed away from the table. The gleaner gathers her portion ear by ear. Her gains are little by little. So must I be content to search for simple truths, if there be no greater plenty of them. We can't handle all of it at once. It has to be gradually. When we're ready to receive it, the Lord reveals more to us. That's why you can read a book over and over again and miss everything until one day you read it and you're like, I never saw that before. That's because you're ready and the Lord revealed it to you. Every ear helps to make a bundle, and every gospel lesson assists in making us wise unto salvation. Sanctification. The gleaner keeps her eyes open. If she stumbled among the stubble in a dream, she would have no load to carry home rejoicingly at eventide. I must be watchful in religious exercises, lest they become unprofitable to me. I fear I have lost much already, and the Lord will restore the lost years. Oh, that I may rightly estimate, it's not an excuse, but he said he would. Oh, that I may rightly estimate my opportunities and glean with greater diligence. Study to show yourselves approved, like Upper Room needs to. The gleaner stoops for all she finds, and so must I. High spirits criticize an object, but lowly minds glean and receive benefit. A humble heart is a great help towards profitability hearing the gospel. The engrafted soul-saving word is not received except with meekness. A stiff back makes a bad gleaner. Down, Master Pride, thou art a vile robber, not to be endured for a moment. What the gleaner gathers, she holds. If she dropped one ear to find another, the result of her day's work would be but scant. She is as careful to retain as to obtain, and so, at last, her gains are great. How often do I forget all that I hear? The second truth pushes the first out of my head. And so my reading and hearing end in much ado about nothing. Do I feel duly the importance of storing up the truth? You see what he's doing here? Don't just read it. Keep it. A hungry belly makes the gleaner wise. If there be no corn in her hand, there will be no bread on her table. She labors under a sense of necessity, and hence her tread is nimble and her grasp is firm. I have even a greater necessity. Lord, help me to feel it, that it may urge me onward to glean in fields which yield so plenteous a reward of diligence. So if we're going to be prosperous in our development as Christians, we need to be as diligent in prayer as we can. Now, you may be distracted and not able to. It may not come to mind. I'm just as guilty as anybody else. But I do keep up with it as much as I can. Also, reading the Word. Study to show yourselves approved. When he said study, he didn't say just open the book and read it and close it. He said look at it. Hear it. Learn it, understand it, feel it. It needs to become a part of us. That's why a young woman too, random young woman to stand up on a plane and preach to a bunch of strangers. Because the word means something. It has value. Like that Upper Room character, I'm not going to make up something like that and mock an important event. Instead, it needs to be important and mean something. I see a lot of people claim to be Christians, yet mock the word, mock the Lord. If you mock the word, you're mocking the Lord because he is the word. The word became flesh and dwelt among men. So it's important that we seek to learn more. Look at the original language. Find out what these words mean. What is this telling me? What is going on here? And, you'll be able to identify many a false doctrine. You'll be able to avoid many a hairy situation or a spiritual battle just by reading the word and studying it. It's literally read a section, do it prayerfully, do it with purpose. I'm going to learn about this. And then go and look at, open up, look at it. I mean, the apps are free. Go up and look at the original language. Look at the original language and see, what is it telling me? What is the definition of this? What is this revealing to me? And you start to see a great many new things. And it starts to become, when you look up the meaning of a word, it starts to broaden your grasp of what that's referring to. I got an Army buddy that's an English major. And why English, I don't know. All he does is run his mouth all the time about how smart he is. And we were talking one time, and I'm mentioning free-for-all, and he says, oh, no, that's not a free-for-all. I was like, that's exactly a free-for-all, what I just described to you. No, that's involving, a whole bunch of people, not people on teams. And I was like, but it's still a free-for-all. So I brought up the definition, I read it. And I was like, hey, I said, you're an English major. How do you not know the definition of this word? I don't know the definitions of all words. Yeah, you ought to have some type of understanding of it if you have a master's in English. Come on, man. See, English is one of those skate by degrees that serves no purpose. What can you get a job having a master's in English? Go be a teacher. Well, he can't do that. He can't do that because he has too many hardcore political opinions, and he's right wing, thankfully, but he looks down on everybody. So it's done him no good. The whole point of learning is to help others, bring them up. You don't keep them down and push them down and look down on them and talk down to them. Grab them by the hand and lift them up. Come on up here where I'm at. Let me share with you what I've learned. So we need to be these type of people that are diligent about the word. Learn more. Now, not everybody's going to be given the same understanding. The people that are in a position of teaching or warning or prophecy or any of these positions where their dedication is to the word and sharing the word and details in it and relating it to world events and stuff like that, a different understanding is given, a more detailed one, because we talk about these things. For your normal everyday person, they don't need to be out inside that type of ministry if the Lord hasn't drawn them to that. And so they don't need a much more detailed understanding. This is where all of us come in. And this is why I take what I do very seriously. Even though I'm not a teacher, I technically am in a position of it because I'm sharing with you guys what I'm learning. Not really teaching, just sharing it with you. But I'm not going to say that's not teaching. It's just in a roundabout way it is. But I'm a watchman and I need to warn. And that's my primary function, is to warn. Warn about false doctrine, warn about this, warn about that. And so the Lord is going to give me a more detailed understanding on certain things. Things are going to become clearer so that I can share them with you guys. And then what happens is in doing that, then you guys get it. You go look at it in the Word, and then the Lord reveals it to you and opens your understanding. And then you're able to share it to the next person, and the next person, and the next person, on down the road. No one single person is responsible for somebody's salvation. Somebody plants, somebody waters, God provides the increase. The Bible tells us that. But how can we expect to do that if we're not studying and looking at it and reading it? When you go and you dig into the promises, we've had so many devotions talking about the promises. When you go and dig into the promises of God and do that as a purposeful, dedicated study, I'm going to look at the promises. I want to see the Old and New Testament, all the promises that are given. And you go on, you Google references to promises in the Bible, or the promises of the Lord in the Bible, and take a list and just start looking. And all of a sudden you start to realize, oh, wait, that list is not comprehensive. There is way more. The book is rife with it. It's full of it. The promises are pouring out of the pages. If the promises of the Lord were oil, then every Bible that there has ever been printed would constantly leave a puddle of oil everywhere it went, because it's just spilling out of them. They're so obvious. They're so amazing. They're so overflowing. And when you do a dedicated study of that, you learn a lot more about, the word makes more sense to you. You learn a lot more about all the things that are happening, including prophecy. It all connects. And it helps you grow. It helps you help others grow. Warn others. All them people on that plane that girl stood up and preached to, that wasn't by accident. That wasn't random. At least one person that was on that plane either had seed planted or had seed watered. or receive conviction, a Christian will come out of that. She doesn't know it. None of us will know it. But later on, that person might suddenly just snap and they go, wow, I remember that girl on the plane. That really hit me. And they go to the Lord and get saved. What does the parable of the sower of the seed say? Walked through, cast seed, kept walking, didn't go back. Never knew whether the seed grew or not. Never knew what happened. That's what she did. She was a sower of seed. And she may have inadvertently watered some too. I imagine there's probably several people on that plane that it mattered to them. It made a difference to them. And that's good. And we all do that when we do these videos, when we talk with our neighbors, the lives we live and the way we conduct ourselves, all has a part to play in that. And the Lord uses us. But the only way we're going to ever learn his attributes, his will, what we are to be doing, the only way we're going to learn that is if we are reading the word and studying it, making it a part, feasting on it, making it a part of our daily walk. When you open that book and read it with purpose, that's part of your worship too. Studying the word and learning about the Lord is part of our worship. So you want to worship the Lord more? A lot of people are like, I want to worship more. Start studying your Bible. That's part of your worship. You will never regret it. It is nothing but a positive. You have nothing but to gain from it. Only gain. You cannot lose anything. And it will arm you with the information needed to help others come out of false doctrine and come to the Lord in the light. All we need is the milk of the word. You're saved, you're saved. But to go into the meat of the word, true, with much knowledge comes much, sadness. Because we learn things that other people don't know, and we know things, and we can't tell them. They won't listen. Don't do that. That's going to end in disaster. They won't listen. Okay. I've had stuff happen. I didn't say a word, and then disaster. Did you know that was going to happen? Yep. Why did you say something? Because the last time I did, nobody paid attention, and we ended up in disaster anyway. Why do you think I bowed out? As I've told my wife and my son and my daughter, I said, listen, if I tell you don't do something, it's because I see something you don't. If I tell you, hey, let's back away from this, it's because I know there's something that's going to happen we don't want to be involved in. If I tell you watch out for this, it's because I know something you don't know. Not because I'm all smart and powerful, because I've learned things over the years that tell me, here's a situation. I need to analyze this. And if there's an issue, don't be a part of it. And my daughter, it worked. I told you this before. It worked with my daughter because I had personal experience in the military, certain groups, and she was going to one of these these protests or whatever. She's going to hand out water. She goes, "That's all I'm doing is handing out water. I'm not going to be with them." I said, "Okay." I said, "That's good because you don't want to be identified as one of them because they'll track your social media, and if they ever decide to go clean out the places and arrest everybody, they'll come to your house." She goes, "No, I'm not interested in that. I'm just going to go hand out water." I said, "Okay." And so I told her, I said, "Here's what you need to watch for. Look for men wearing tan vests, like sporting vests, black hats. Some of them have the Punisher logo on them. Some of them have nothing on them, sunglasses, and they're just standing there looking around." I told her, I said, they got cameras in the glasses. And this was before all this stuff came out with the other cameras that they have now you can buy. They've had that for ages and ages. I said, they got cameras in them, they're filming. They're taking notes. So if they always have one hand in a pocket and they never take it out, it's a fake arm. And the other one is holding a firearm. Many people have noticed this and discovered this. But that's what they do. And I told her, I said, if you see that and you see them surrounding the back of the crowd very quietly and very nonchalantly, and don't look at them, just make your way out, go to your car, and go home. Because you don't know what's going to happen. Well, it happened. And she called me and she says, "Everything you told me was true." And I said, "Yeah, that's because I know. I've learned." She says, "I saw them. They literally were wearing black hats. They didn't have the Punisher logo on them, but they had sunglasses on, and they were wearing the tan vests. And a couple of them had an arm. They never moved it. and it looked fake. She goes, I noticed it, and they were surrounding the back of our crowd. And so I grabbed my friends and I said, we need to leave right now. And we very quietly snuck around and went out and went down an alley and got in our car and left. She said, I found out later that they had a big police movement come through and start pushing them out and clear the streets. And they were hitting them with the tear gas and all that. And I said, I told you. She says, yeah, you were right. She goes, I didn't believe you, but you were right. I said, oh. I'm just sharing with you what I've learned so that you know what to watch for and so you don't run into trouble. The more we learn from Scripture, the more we can warn others, the more we can help others, the more we can assist others and bless others. And that's what we're supposed to do, is be light, be living light, be blessing to people around us, even if they don't believe. The Lord makes it rain on the just and the unjust, so I remember one time going to a store. Elaine and my son stayed in the car. I start walking in, and I'm just kind of looking around, checking, scanning the area. Always got my head up, scanning the area, looking. And I saw 3 guys dressed like that, and they all 3 went in the store I was about to go in. I said, nope. And I turned around, and I went back to the truck. That was quick. I said, yeah, a couple of individuals went in there that I don't want to get involved in anything that may be going down. They may just be shopping, but I don't want to be around it if something's going to go down. So we went to another store. Problem solved. When you learn that stuff, you learn to avoid trouble. And Proverbs says, the prudent see trouble coming and hide themselves, and the foolish walk on and are punished. That's a literal and a physical, but there's also a spiritual aspect of that. There's some spiritual things you don't want to be involved in. There's some churches you do not want to set foot in. You don't even want to get close to them. And people flock to those. It's dangerous now. It's dangerous. So the whole summary, the whole point of all this is that what we want to do is make sure that we are doing what the Lord has told us to do and digging into the Word. Not only our prayer is our worship, but our meditation is our worship, and our reading of His Scriptures is our worship, so that we do grow and we can help others and share what we learn for His glory, for their blessing, for our blessing. That's our commission. That's what we're supposed to do. Spread the gospel. Share the truth. And maybe, just maybe, we can bring somebody else into the family. Maybe, just maybe, we can help bring someone else into the family. What a day that'll be. How amazing is it to have the crown where you win souls? Now, many of us may have done it and not even know, but we'll find out when we get there. Because if we play a part in the winning of a soul, that's part of it. So read the Bible. Study the Scriptures. Be a blessing to anyone and everyone you can. And let's keep watching and not give up. Let's glean everything we can from this book. Share it with anyone. That's why I got all these videos up to share what I'm learning. Right or wrong. I mean, I'm sure I made mistakes in there. But share it with people so that everybody can be blessed by it. And let's move forward into eternity. I love you all very much. I bless you all in Jesus' name. And I'll see you in the next video.